Well, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for joining me once again. So, I was going to do a video about PTSD. Whatever. But I figured since it's so close to Valentine's Day, why not do one about love? Now, I'm not going to go over all the things that most people want to go over when they talk about love. Most people, want to be like, oh yeah, my guy got me flowers, or, this date went super well, or I really like this guy. And I'm not going to really go over shit like that. This channel's for everything that happens in the back. In the back of your head, in the back of relationships, behind closed doors. That's what this is about. So, here we go. So, what is the question? Is this love? What is love? Well, it's many things. It's not what a lot of people think what love is. It's not necessarily being in a romantic relationship. Love can be many things, You have your love for your family, for your friends, and then you have respect, which is different from love. So it could be respect for a coworker or respect for a friend or a family member. But a lot of times those two things translate roughly into each other, and that's when problems begin. Is people will think they love somebody and they just like them or deeply respect them, but it's not love. Or sometimes it will be. The only experience with love that I ever had, they were never good. So just so y'all know, for me, my first experience with love was with her, and I talked about that in previous videos, and maybe if this channel blows up, I'll make a video about her, but for now, we'll just call her, and we know that she is the biggest manipulator and narcissist that I have ever met in my entire life. I've met people similar to her, but she's just had so many experiences and so many years of doing it that she has it down to a T. That was my first love experience. I'd say I was pretty much in love with her. Not in a romantic way, but you get the gist. I would have done anything for her. And I thought she would have done anything for me. But she used the fact that I was willing to change for her, and she used the fact that I did change for her to take advantage of me. She changed me. So when I was a kid, I was actually terrible. Obviously, I'm me. But I had a lot of anger issues. It wasn't great. I'd take it out on people, and things, and that wasn't right. But when I was 11 and I moved in with her, that was, my big old trigger was, I need to stop because this is hurting people. I think what made me realize that was, it wasn't real or anything, but I really thought it was in the moment. But it triggered that sequence of processing, which was, I guess, good. Not to give her any kudos, but whatever. No, she's older. So she pretended when I threatened to go live back with my mother, she threatened me, and then she pretended to have a heart attack, and she fell on the floor, and she did her whole bit, but, I was only 12, and I didn't know any better, I was on the brink of calling 911 before she called it quits, because she didn't want to have the cops called on something that she was obviously faking. But, that kind of opened my eyes. I thought whatever I was doing was triggering it and that it was my fault. So I didn't know any better, and I thought that was the reason why I wanted to change, and to begin with it was. So I stopped everything I was doing and I changed pretty much overnight. And instead of taking my anger out on other people, I started taking it out on myself. And that's where the self-love comes in. There was none. None whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. And because of that, I did a lot of things I regretted. Because that was my first experience, not with only loving somebody else like that, but learning to hate myself. Obviously that's a big one to overcome. And then when I finally got away from her and escaped, it took me years to figure out that what happened to me was wrong. That what happened to me was more than just her being a bad person or me being a bad person, but it was the fact that I came to a lot of realizations, because I thought that, what happened was love. Her tearing me down was love. Her trying to beat the shit out of me was love, I didn't know any better. I mean, my mom always taught me to, look for the signs, but love is blinding, and that's for sure. So, but I finally realized stuff. Like, I realized what I went through was abuse, and that it was more than just physical, that there was mental abuse, and that most times mental abuse can be so much worse, purely for the fact that, it's all psychological. It's a lot of them manipulating you into thinking whatever they want, and depending on what they want, I mean, she wanted me to be with her forever, She never thought I would pull back as hard as I did or do the things that I did. She would have never thought in a million years I would start cutting myself or try to commit suicide twice, because of her. In her mind, it was just another day, and she was a great person teaching me great things and great habits. But that wasn't the case. Like I said, it took me a while to realize it, but I finally did, and, I'm not going to tell you that I am completely over everything that I've been through, because I'm not. But I'm working on it, and, I guess you could say I've gotten over the majority of it. I've completely cut ties, and, it's been 4 years, and I'm working on myself. Or, let me phrase, I'm trying to. And then my second experience with love was when I was 16. I met this guy. He was a lot older than me. And of course, I worked with him, and he got to know me, and we became best pals, and then, we started texting each other and stuff, and unfortunately it grew into something more, and I thought I was in love with him, and I thought he was my first love, and I thought that's how things were supposed to be. I thought, just because he's older, age doesn't mean anything. This is a great idea. Fantastic. But no, he was just, the only thing he wanted me for was sex. Which from somebody else's point of view is very apparent. I mean, I knew that it was most likely, but there were just some times and some things that he said that made me think otherwise. Like when they hold you close and they kiss you and they tell you that they love you and that you're the love of their life. I didn't know how to respond to that one, so I just didn't, but it's the point that, I'm trying to prove is with everything that people like that say, there's always the bitter truth behind it, sweet little lies, bitter truth. I'm not going to say never believe it, because there's some people who are truly good people who, it's not sweet little lies, they actually mean it. It's super hard to decipher it. It's like you're doing coding all day and it's just for emotions, which is ridiculous. But those were my only real things that I consider love. I mean, I had other things that were obviously red flags, but it wasn't love. And they weren't even relationships or anything close. Not even friendships. I've had some things happen within my family. Me and my aunt, she was the pinnacle of her pyramid, or whatever you want to say. She was the top. Nobody could ever be like her. And even if you were, and if you surpassed her and whatever she did, you still weren't good enough. And then, with my mixed emotions about my aunt like that, seeing that I would never be as good as her, even though she was doing very poorly in life herself, with her own situations, that I'd never amount to anything. That was something that I was always taking out on myself, because she was the standard, even though I had surpassed her more than once. But that, between that and my aunt always being at her side, always being there, and taking her side, that kind of drove us apart. And then, when I started cutting and stuff, she tried helping me out and getting me away from that situation. But whenever I talked to her about stuff, she didn't want to hear it, because she didn't want to hear that she was a bad person. She didn't want to hear that the one person who treated her like a god was a bad person themselves. So, that's just something. And that kind of turned us apart, and now I don't speak with her either. And then when I was in elementary school, I had this friend who I really, really liked. I won't say love, because that definitely was not love, but I liked her so much that I let her beat the shit out of me every day. So bad, to the point where I had to hide my bruises and shit, just so I can continue to hang out with her. And after a while, I got sick of it. But love, yeah, it's a tough one. And it's not, like I said before, it's not always romantic, or even towards somebody else. It could be towards yourself. Like for me, self-love, it's non-existent. Whenever I think I'm getting myself into a good situation, there's that reflection of myself, and I see what a terrible person. Imagine looking in the mirror, and instead of seeing yourself or a good person, you see a bad one. And that's just always how I've seen myself. And, the majority of that is because of her. Because, I was never the standards, or, whatever I was doing was terrible. It made me a bad person in her eyes. And when I stopped hating the world, I turned it back around on myself. And I started hating myself. And I still do. I'm not gonna lie. Every time I think I'm getting myself in a good situation, I think of how many ways I've already fucked it up, or how many ways I'm going to, or, the reasons why it wouldn't work, because I'm a bad person. And I'm trying not to be. I'm trying so fucking hard not to be a bad person, but it seems like it's just in the cards for me. I feel like on the outside, I'm really fake. and on the inside it's all tar. Because I'll smile, I'll make people laugh, I'll spew on about, how I want to help other people and how I wish that somebody was there for me at that time. But I think if they were, I would have just pushed them away. Because at that point in time, anybody that was good for me, I didn't want anything to do with. When I was at my worst, I missed so much. When I was in the middle of cutting and everything before everybody found out and it became a thing, I missed a lot. It felt like time was flashing before my eyes. Like, both my little brothers had already grown up, it seemed like. And it was only within the span of 3 months. I saw their progression and degression. And I saw how everybody else just moved on and I was still stuck. And I feel like I still am. I feel like I've moved on quite a bit, but I'm trying really hard, and I'm trying to better myself and become a better person and help those around me and all the things, but I feel like I'm still stuck. I'm in school right now. I have 3 jobs. I try to pay for the majority of the rent and the bills, and I try my hardest to do what needs to be done, but I still feel like it's not enough. And that's probably because of my PTSD, PTSD. But, it's just difficult when, you're so used to everything being your fault, and you're used to things going wrong, and you're used to this and used to that. And then in your mind, that's just how it's gonna be, Like, in my current little pickle that I'm in right now, I finally found somebody that I really like. And he's way out of my league. I work with him. But he's really good looking. He's sweet. He's a nice person. He's going places. He's everything I ever wanted. And we have so much in common. And the even crazier thing is he likes me back. We're just too chicken to ask either out. There's the whole fact that we work together that's standing in the way too. I think that's a big thing that's holding him back from asking me, but I keep going over in my head on why he's not, on why he's so afraid. And yes, it might be commitment, it might be the job, and those are probably the most logical things, but where my brain goes as well, maybe the more we got to know each other, the more he realized how bad of a person I was. Maybe I'm not cut out for love. Maybe I'm just so broken inside that any glimmer of hope just cannot shine. They've just all depleted. Like a dying star that crashes and burns. And the only thing it leaves is a giant crater in the earth. A giant hole saying, "This is where I used to be." Then a little piece of coal and a pocket of ash saying, "Yeah, this is me. Broken as I'll ever get." And nobody's able to fix that. That's how I am. It's difficult to believe that people will ever love you if you can't love yourself. So I guess that's a lesson right there, is work on yourself before you try to find somebody else to love you too, because if you get in a situation where they're picking up all your broken pieces, it's going to be exhausting for them. It's going to be hard to always be mending, and they're going to get tired of it, So just try to pick up your pieces before you try to give it to somebody else. Glue your heart back together as best as possible before giving it away. It's just like, something you're fixing at home. You've had it for 20 years and it's been broken and worn down and smashed against the wall or whatever. But, you picked up the pieces and you hot glued it together and put some duct tape on it. And then you tried selling it, and it looks decent, so you sold it for a good price. But yeah, it's difficult knowing that you could be happy, that something could come out of something, and you're probably just holding yourself back. Like, at this point, I don't know if it's me or him, or if this whole situation is just a lie because he's so far out of my league. I have no idea why or how anybody like him would love or like somebody like me. I don't see anything becoming of it. Like, I want to, and I want to try. I want something to happen. Of course I do. Everybody does. Everybody wants to feel loved. Everybody wants to feel wanted. Everybody wants somebody, no matter what they say. They want to have their rock. They want to have that person they can hold on to. That forever person, their first love, whatever. No matter how many times people cry and say whatever, they want it. It doesn't mean they'll ever get it, or it doesn't mean they'll believe they'll ever get it. Or maybe they don't believe that they want it, but if it was handed to them, they'd take it with open arms. But yeah, love is difficult, whether romantic or not. Love is always just going to be that topic that you'll never be able to climb over. It's like a lot of things. I mean, I'll talk about things like anxiety, depression, PTSD, but those are all things you can overcome. It's really hard. It takes a lot. But love is always something that's going to be coming up. And it's always going to be present. It's always going to be something you're thinking about. There's always going to be somebody, And at least one person, and even if it's just one, it's something you have to put thought into. But yeah, so is this love? I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't think I know what love is. I think I want to, and I think I know the actions and the effects of it, but I don't think I've experienced it, and I don't think I really know what it is. I've tried loving people, and I think people have tried loving me, but I just make it incredibly difficult. And I don't think I'll ever love myself. I'm never going to be proud of what I've done, Because, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say a lot of people aren't proud of what I've done either, but where that's coming from is just from jobs and stuff. They don't really care. They don't know you as an individual. They just want something to put down on paper. But I don't really have a lot of people who could be proud of me. Like, I have 2 family members, and that's it. I have my grandfather and my mother, and those are the last of them. Other than that, I don't have any friends. I'm not in a relationship. I don't know. I wish I knew what love was. Maybe then I could look for the signs and try to go after it. Maybe if I knew what love was, it would be easier. And I know I'm trying to tell you guys about my experiences and tell you guys how things are, but there's just some things I don't know. And there's some things I'm never going to overcome myself. But I hope you guys can. I hope you guys can see like red flags and actually put the 2 pieces together, unlike me. As my mother always says, learn from my mistakes. I'll tell you the stories a million times, but take them to heart and learn from them. And I have for the most part. But some things are they're things you need to learn on your own. Unfortunately, that means making the bad decisions. So, I guess we can start going into red flags. When people, you can tell. They'll be nicey nice, but then as soon as they get comfortable, they'll start showing signs. Like what I thought was my best friend. She was my coworker. She was super sweet and shy. And then when we started talking, all she wanted to talk about was herself. You know, how she was and how her love life was and the guys she liked and how broke she was. And then whenever you brought up anything about yourself, she'd, dismiss it and, not even acknowledge that you said anything. Or she'd always have her hand out, asking for things or asking you to go get her things or buy her things. Those are small little things that you don't really see, making coffee runs for your best friend or going and hanging out and driving her places. You don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. You see that as hanging out. But, when you're the only one giving, that's a red flag right there. And then, it's the same thing with everything. Like, I can think of one of everything, for all the people. Like, the older guy that I was talking about, the only thing he wanted was sex. We'd go, quote unquote, hang out, and then it'd turn into sex. And then immediately after he'd leave. And then it just kept on going and going and going and going. And it wasn't a good thing. It definitely wasn't a good thing. And then as well as for her, she wanted too much all the time. I think what she was really looking for was a romantic relationship like she had in the past, like with her husbands and stuff. But she wanted it better. She wanted it in how she imagined having a partner. She wanted me to pay all the bills. She wanted me to cover all her expenses and then some. She wanted me to cook and clean and have the house prestigious and organized all the time, as well as be better than my aunt, since she was the pinnacle. And the whole thing with her was she was smart, and I'm not disqualifying that, but I feel like I'm smarter, and I've proved it time and time again, by graduating 3 years early with honors, straight A's, getting a job, starting college at a really young age. I did all the things and I tried, and, I was better than her. My aunt, she did a lot of things, but she just, after a while, she just couldn't get through it. With her nursing degree, she tried really, I'm not going to say she tried really hard because she didn't, she didn't really want to put in the work or have the time or have the people to help with her surroundings to do it. And she didn't put enough of herself into it, so she failed. But, with me, time and time again, I prove that I'm better than her, but, I'm not, according to her. So, there's that. That's a red flag, never living up to their expectations or them always comparing you to somebody. It could be the same thing with a relationship, the one guy who will always bring up his ex. Well, my ex used to do it this way and I loved it, and my ex this and my ex that. It doesn't necessarily have to be not a relationship like that. So, you can pick apart every relationship you have, and no matter good or bad, they'll all have their ulterior motives. And once you take a second, slow down and think, you'll start to see them, and you'll start to see repetition. So, there's that. Or you might not, and there might not be much wrong. They might be using you just to chat your ear off, because they like spending time with you. And that's not a bad thing, they're just trying to have company with you. But you can't look at everything as evil. You can't look at everything as good. That's really hard in the world we live in, where the majority of people are bad. There are a lot of bad people in this world, and there are a lot of bad things that happen. If there wasn't, we wouldn't have statistics. There wouldn't be suicide statistics and cutting statistics and rape and abuse and everything else. You wouldn't get cop calls very often if that was the case. If we were all just good people, if things didn't happen. But they do. They happen a lot. Like I said, that's why we have the statistics. Like, when I first started cutting, I looked at the statistics for it, and it was 3 in 11 people. And, I'd try to look around, like, in school and stuff to see where the other 2 were. I never found them, but, I had to become a statistic. I had become the 3 in 11, and the same thing with my suicide attempt. I'd become it. And that's difficult to face up to. It's difficult to face up that you're the reason, they're paving the way for things the way they are. Like with my work in mental health, it's people like me that we need those things, and why you did it. But, it all boils down to love, no matter what way you want to put it. I didn't love myself, and I loved her too much. So, no matter what you can do, everybody has a passion, and then everybody loves whatever their passion is. Like these people who go traveling around the world to shoot movies or take pictures, they don't do it for fun. Or, they do, but they do it because they love it. And to make money, and they love money. It's a mixture of things, but it all boils down to love. Everything in the world, it's all made of love. And there are a lot of things made of hate. But that is just love reversed. Ono reverse card. I hope some of the things I tell you guys kind of sinks in. That you guys learn from all my mistakes, and at least maybe comprehend how people with anxiety, depression, PTSD, lack of self-esteem, whatever you want to say, because I have all the check marks. If you can see it happening and you can kind of tell what's going on. Maybe this will help you help them. Maybe this will help you see the way they do, so there's not as many begrudging fights or whatever you want to say. This world's difficult. Let's not make it any harder. Let's try to better for ourselves, love yourself, and for others. And if you can't find yourself to do it, at least realize what's going on. That's the biggest thing I want people to understand. Because my whole life I was told for every single thing I went through, oh, I understand, I went through that and it was worse. Well, you don't understand, and it wasn't worse. I can guarantee that. For a lot of things. And I'm not saying that I've had it the worst out of anybody on this planet, because I haven't. Most people who would look at my life would think, oh, why the fuck is she depressed? There's nothing wrong with her. Nothing happened to her. But, and just, I hope you can see it. And if you can see it, leave a like or comment and a share. Thank y'all for listening. I hope y'all have a good night and good day, afternoon. If I don't hear from you tomorrow, I'll see you again. Bye.